Welcome to Karma Chronicles. Please like the video and subscribe. Let's begin.
I was the boring one, always had been. The quiet, dependable older sister who did the grocery runs, paid the overdue bills, and stayed late to help clean up after every family cookout while everyone else disappeared the second their plates were empty. Kyle, he was the golden child, the charming screw-up with a nice smile and 1,000 second chances. He'd show up late with some new girlfriend, hug everyone like he hadn't just crashed another lease, and make Grandma laugh until she forgot he still owed her $5,000. When Grandpa died first, then Grandma less than a year later, I didn't cry in front of anyone. I handled the estate, paid off the debts, and met with their lawyer every Thursday for 6 months straight. The pawn shop they ran for 40 years, the rental properties, the old brick building on 6th and Maple, every piece of it was left to me, all of it. And it wasn't a mistake. The will was clear. Grandpa had even notarized the business trust paperwork himself before he got too sick. He knew Kyle would torch it all if it went to him. He'd said as much over sweet tea on the porch one night. "You're the only one who'll take care of it, Angel. You do the work." So I did. I set up an LLC, put the properties under a holding company, converted the pawn shop to a business trust, and filed every title under the new entity. Changed the locks, switched the insurance, made sure every I was dotted and every T was filed twice. The name on the documents wasn't mine. It didn't need to be. I knew how my family worked. They'd smell blood the second they realized what I had. So I let them think I was just handling the paperwork until a real decision got made. I let Kyle keep calling me sis and pretending he had a clue how trusts work. Meanwhile, I worked. Quietly, I kept the shop open 3 days a week, made payments on time, ran maintenance on the rental units myself. It wasn't glamorous, but it was stable, predictable. I never posted online about it, never bragged. I just kept my head down, and my paperwork tighter than Kyle's last alibi. Quick note, before we start, how's your day going and where are you joining from? Some nights, I lay awake thinking about what would happen if they found out. Not because I was scared, I'd covered my bases too well for that, but because I knew my silence wouldn't last forever. Eventually, Kyle would come sniffing around. And when he did, I needed everything ready. So I smiled through family dinners. I nodded while my mother joked about Angel, the assistant manager of life. I swallowed every insult, and I waited. Waited for the day they tried to take what wasn't theirs. And the second they did, I'd already won. It was a Saturday afternoon, hot and thick with dust. I had the pawn shop doors propped open, ceiling fans spinning hard, and a folding table covered in old hunting knives I was sorting for resale. I was halfway through logging serial numbers when the front bell dinged. I didn't even look up. "Wow," Kyle said, real loud like he was walking into a courtroom. "Look at this place. You're still playing shopkeeper, huh?" I glanced up. He was in some oversized designer hoodie, sunglasses on like he was in LA, not sweating through his socks in downtown Springfield. And right behind him, Mom, arms crossed, tight smile, dressed like she was heading to Sunday brunch instead of a shakedown. My stomach went cold, but I kept my face straight. They stepped in like they owned the place. Kyle ran a hand across the counter like he was inspecting it. Mom didn't even look around, just stared at me like she was waiting for me to speak first. I didn't. Kyle cleared his throat. "So, we wanted to stop by in person. Make sure this transition goes smooth." I put the knife I was holding down, slow. "What transition?" Mom stepped forward, digging something out of her purse. "There was a mistake in your grandfather's business paperwork. Some outdated registration filings. Kyle and I fixed it. Filed the corrections this week. Everything's processed now." Kyle pulled a copy of something out of a plastic sleeve and laid it on the glass counter like a dead fish. "Title, transfer. Buildings under my name now." I scanned the document with a quick glance. Looked clean, but the font spacing was off. "Cheap fake." Mom said, "We're not trying to make this difficult, honey. But legally, you have no standing anymore. You'll need to vacate by Friday." That hit different. The word vacate. Like I was some squatter they were politely evicting. I didn't flinch. I just said, "Got it." Kyle blinked. "Wait, what?" I looked back down at my inventory list like they hadn't just handed me a forged title and told me to get out of my own building. Inside, I was holding back a laugh. They really thought this was going to work. Mom shifted. "We figured you'd be mature about it." "Mature," I repeated dry. Kyle leaned on the counter like he thought he had the upper hand now. "Look, I know this place meant a lot to Grandpa, but we've got bigger plans. Gonna modernize it, new signage, digital storefront, maybe even flip the building. There's real money here, and we don't want to waste time. I gave him a slow blink. Sure, he smirked. That's it? I nodded once. That's it. Quick note. While you're listening, tell us which country you're watching from. They stood there a beat longer, like they were waiting for me to explode. Cry. Beginning. Something. I reached over, picked the next knife up, and started logging again. I didn't even look at them when I said, "You two done here?" Kyle huffed. Wow, cold, sis. Mom softened her voice like she always did when she wanted to act like the victim. This isn't personal, Angel. We're just doing what makes sense for the family, I looked up then. Held her eyes for maybe 2 seconds. No smile, no anger, just stillness. Then I went back to work. Kyle made a little scoffing sound and turned to the door. You'll be out by Friday. One way or another. They walked out together like they'd won something. I waited until the door closed and the bell stopped ringing. Then I smiled. Tuesday morning, I got to the shop before sunrise. Parked across the street, coffee in hand, engine still running. My lawyer, Maddox, showed up 10 minutes later in a gray Honda Civic with a dented front bumper and a briefcase that looked like it had seen a bar fight. Ready? He asked, stepping out. More than. We posted up right outside the pawn shop's front door. Maddox leaned against the brick wall, flipping through copies of the trust papers and title documents like he was waiting for a slow lunch order. I stood next to him, arms crossed, sunglasses on. Didn't say a word. At 9:06 a.m., a white Ford Transit van pulled up. Sliding door popped open like a clown car, and out spilled Kyle, Mom, and 3 guys with tool belts and clipboards. One had a ladder, another carried a toolbox. All of them looked confused, like they'd just been told this was a legit gig. Kyle strutted up like he owned the block. Hey, he called out, smiling like a salesman. Didn't expect you to be here this early. I didn't answer. He looked at Maddox. Who's this? Maddox closed the file calmly. I'm her attorney, County Small Business Administration. You're Kyle Thomas? Kyle laughed. Yeah, why? Maddox didn't smile. You filed fraudulent documents last week, attempting to transfer ownership of this property to yourself. Kyle tilted his head like he misheard. What? No, that's not. What are you talking about? Mom stepped in. Hold on. We were told the paperwork was correct. There was just a missing registration update from years ago. We fixed it. That's all. Maddox flipped a page. Your son submitted a forged title application, fake signature from a deceased party, and attached a fabricated notary seal from a business that no longer exists. That's not a clerical error. That's a felony. One of the tool belt guys froze mid-step. Wait, what? Kyle looked from me to Maddox. Okay, look, this is just a misunderstanding. We're family. No, Maddox said flatly. This is a legal issue. Kyle forced a laugh. Dude, come on. You're seriously pulling this in front of strangers? You did that yourself, I said, stepping forward. They both looked at me. It was the first time I'd spoken. Mom blinked. Angel, sweetheart, we didn't know. Stop. I held up one hand. Don't play dumb. You thought I'd roll over. You thought I was stupid. But I've got every paper, every timestamp, and every legal record locked up tighter than your last marriage. Kyle's mouth opened like he had a comeback, but nothing came out. Quick pause. Before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. Maddox pulled out one last folder, handed it to Kyle. That's your formal notice. Any attempt to enter this building again will be treated as trespassing, and your fraudulent filings have already been submitted to the County Fraud Unit. If you don't want a criminal record, I'd suggest walking away now. Kyle's jaw clenched, his hands balled into fists, but he didn't move. One of the contractors looked at him. Man, I'm not doing time for some fake title. He backed away and got into the van. Mom looked around like the ground was shifting under her. Angel, honey, please don't make this bigger than it needs to be. We're family? I stared at her. You picked your side. Don't pretend this wasn't planned. Another worker turned to Kyle. Dude, you said you had this handled. Kyle snapped, Shut up and get back in the van. But it was over. One by one, the crew got back in the vehicle. Maddox and I stood still, silent, like stones. Kyle shoved the folder into Mom's hands and stormed off, muttering curses. Mom lingered a second longer, eyes wide, lips tight, like she wanted to say something. But she didn't. She turned. They left. I watched the van pull out onto Maple and disappear into traffic. Maddox exhaled through his nose. You all right? I nodded. Better than them. He cracked his neck. They're not going to stop here, you know. I know. He looked over at the pawn shop, then back at me. Well, now it's war. 3 days after they walked off that sidewalk, a thick manila envelope showed up in my mailbox. No return address, just my name typed in stiff black letters. I opened it right there on the porch, thumb slicing through the seal like it owed me something. Inside was a 6-page letter from a law office I'd never heard of. My mother's new lawyer. I read the first paragraph twice, thought maybe I was having a stroke. She was claiming emotional distress. Due to the abrupt and hostile actions taken by my client's daughter regarding family assets and the withholding of moral entitlement owed to her as the surviving parent. Blah, blah, blah. It wasn't just whining, it was a demand letter. She wanted $150,000 in emotional damages, joint ownership of the pawn shop property. And get this, a monthly support stipend. Support. Like I was a damn charity. I read the letter again, slower this time, and the deeper I got, the hotter my skin felt. Not because of the money, not even close. It was how personal she was making it. She was rewriting the whole story like I'd stolen something, like she hadn't just tried to let Kyle steal it first. She was playing the victim in a play she wrote herself. I didn't throw the letter away. I didn't scream or pace or cry. I walked inside, poured a glass of water, sat at the kitchen table, and dialed Maddox. He picked up on the second ring. That didn't take long. She's got a new lawyer, I said. Wants $150,000, half the property, and monthly payments. Calls it moral compensation. Maddox made a noise that sounded like a laugh and a cough. She's out of her mind. She's trying to twist it, I said. Act like I blindsided her. Like I broke the family. Well, he said, let's remind her she broke her case the minute Kyle filed that fake title. He told me to scan every page and send them over. I had it in his inbox 10 minutes later. Quick pause. Before we keep going, tell us what country you're watching from. By the time he called me back that night, he already had a plan. First step is to draft a formal response. Legal tone, hard boundaries. You're not admitting fault. You're not apologizing. You're making it clear there is no settlement. Good, I said. What's step 2? He paused. We go on offense. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. What do you mean? She's making this personal. So we'll go personal. We counter her emotional claims with factual proof, timeline, actions taken, her role in the attempted fraud. We bring in your grandfather's medical records, the dates of the trust creation, everything. If she wants to fight this emotionally, we bury her legally. I stayed quiet. He waited, then said, Look, you've been calm through all of this, but don't let her bait you into guilt. You didn't steal anything. I know, I said. But it's the way she's twisting it. Like I owe her something, like I was supposed to let them rob me and smile through it. She's not mad about the money, he said. She's mad you said no. And that was it. That one sentence. She wasn't hurt. She was humiliated. I'd broken the script. I wasn't supposed to fight back. Maddox emailed me the draft letter by morning. It was clean, firm, legal without being cold. He ended it with a line that made me smile. Our client is not interested in moral interpretations of lawful ownership. We suggest your client focus on facts, not feelings. I told him to send it. This wasn't about family anymore. This was about control, and I wasn't giving it back. Maddox sent the letter out on a Wednesday morning. By that afternoon, we were already knee-deep in document scans and timeline spreadsheets. We met in his office that night, sitting across from each other in a room that smelled like printer toner and burnt coffee. He slid a flash drive across the table. Everything you gave me, scanned, indexed, and backed up twice, including the original trust and the deed transfers. I plugged it into my laptop and opened the folder labeled Protection Files. It was all there. Grandpa's notarized trust, Grandma's handwritten addendum, the digital timestamp logs from the LLC formation, insurance statements, lease agreements, clean, dated, bulletproof. Then Maddox pulled out Kyle's fake title packet. He laid it flat between us. This, he said, tapping the corner, is where it gets interesting. I leaned in. He pointed at the notary stamp on the forged registration form. This seal here doesn't match any licensed notary in the state registry. So it's fake? I asked. He shook his head. Worse. It's stolen that got my attention. I cross-referenced it against every stamp issued in the last 5 years. Turns out this exact seal belonged to a notary who worked for a real estate brokerage that shut down last year. Guess who interned there the summer before it closed? I felt my stomach drop. Kyle! Bingo! Quick note, while you're listening, tell us which city or country you're watching from. He pulled up an old LinkedIn screenshot. Kyle, grinning in a cheap suit, tagged at a company called Rivergate Realty. Maddox clicked to the next tab, a county bulletin from 2 months ago, warning of rising forgery cases tied to online title transfers and defunct notary accounts. So he reused a notary stamp from a dead company? Exactly. The notary probably didn't even know it was missing. And that's enough to, it's enough, he said firm. He committed fraud with intent. That's criminal. I sat back in the chair, arms crossed tight. What do we do now? We let them keep thinking they're ahead? I stared at him. Maddox grinned. We're sending everything to the county fraud investigator. Quietly, let them do their job. He emailed the file that night. Subject line, forgery submission, Kyle Thomas title fraud, Rivergate notary involvement. I didn't tell a soul. Not Bree, not Aunt Cheryl, not anyone who might leak it back to Mom. I let them keep whispering behind my back, thinking they had a case. I let Kyle walk around like his fake title was gold-plated, like he'd pulled one over on me. I said nothing, but every email, every receipt, every signed line of that forged application was now sitting in a county office under active review. Maddox looked at me as we packed up for the night. You still good? He asked. I nodded once. They started it? And you're finishing it, he said. Damn right I was. 2 days after we sent everything to the county, I got a text from my cousin Bree. Can I call you? Something weird's going around, I told her, yeah. And she rang me before I could even set my phone down. Hey, she said, voice low. So, I just left my mom's place, and I think you need to know what's being said. I sat down on the edge of my bed. Go on. She said your mom told her you manipulated Grandpa, that you got him to sign stuff when he was already out of it. Said he didn't know what he was doing when he signed the trust. I didn't say anything, just sat there, heart thudding like it was trying to crawl out of my chest. There's more, Bree said. She's telling people you planned this for years, that you cut everyone out on purpose so you could steal the family fortune. Like you tricked him when he was sick. I swallowed. Who else has she told? My mom said she heard it from 2 of your mom's sisters. So that's Aunt Sherry and probably Aunt Denise. Jesus. She even said you're changing the locks and shutting out the rest of the family, like you're too good for everyone now. Quick pause. Before we go on, where are you watching from today? I rubbed my face hard. My skin felt hot. Thanks for telling me, I said. I didn't want to get in the middle, but you don't deserve this, Angel. You handled all the hard stuff. You took care of everything when nobody else even offered. And now she's making you the villain? She's scared, I muttered. And pissed. Bree hesitated. Do you want me to say something to her? Or back you up? No, I said quickly. Don't put yourself in it. Just, thanks for the heads up. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time. I wasn't even mad yet, just stunned. Like I'd been sucker punched by someone I'd seen coming the whole time. This wasn't about money anymore. It hadn't been for a while. She was trying to wipe me out socially. Not just in court or on paper, but in the family. In every text thread, every backyard barbecue I wasn't invited to. Every prayer circle where they whispered my name like I was cursed. She was painting me as some greedy, cold gold digger who betrayed her own parents. And worse, they were believing it. Aunt Sherry, Denise, probably even my cousin Mike, who used to call me every week asking for help with rent. They weren't calling now, and I knew Mom was doing it on purpose. She didn't need a lawyer to punish me. She had gossip. She had Sunday dinners and guilt trips and that soft, breathy voice she used when she played the victim. I could almost hear her now. I don't know what happened to her. She just changed after they died, started locking me out of everything. I think she might have even forged a few papers, but I'm her mother. I'd never accuse her outright. I just wish she'd talk to us. Bullshit. She wasn't hurt. I saw the look in her eye that day with the fake contractors. She was furious that I didn't play along, that I didn't flinch when she tried to take what wasn't hers. And now she was doing the only thing left in her toolbox, destroying my name. I didn't cry, didn't storm over to her house or blow up the group chat. I went to my desk, opened a new file, and labeled it defamation, personal attack documentation. She wanted a war? Fine, I wasn't just building a defense anymore. Now I was building the truth. I didn't sleep that night. Between mom's lies and the silence from people who used to call me the glue, I sat at my desk in sweats, hair tied up, tabs open across the screen like a battlefield map. I wasn't just pissed anymore. I was done playing defense. So I called Maddox. He picked up sounding like he hadn't left his office in days. Let me guess, smear campaign? She's rewriting the whole story. Grandpa, the trust, all of it. She's telling people I forged documents while he was sick. He let out a breath. Time to go public. I want a packet, I said. Straight facts. No fluff. Just dates, signatures, screenshots, and proof. You'll have it tomorrow. And he meant it. By noon the next day, he emailed me a clean, 3-page document. Legal trust date and signed version from the year before Grandpa got sick. Verified title transfers and LLC filings. A side-by-side of Kyle's fake notary stamp against the county registry. Screenshots of text threads from my mom basically admitting they were trying to fix things after the fact. And photos of the original will, signed and notarized properly, with Grandpa's note in his handwriting. Angel handles everything. No exceptions. I added a simple cover note. To my family, there's been a lot of talk. Here's the truth. Every document in this file is official, legal, and time-stamped. I've said nothing until now because I thought I didn't need to defend myself against lies. But if you've heard anything about me stealing or manipulating Grandpa, read this first, then decide what's true. Angel, I sent it to 27 people. Every cousin, every aunt, 2 great uncles. Even the family Facebook group administrator. No BCC, full names, direct, transparent. Then I closed the laptop and went to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, stood at the sink, and waited. The first call came 4 hours later. It was Aunt Cheryl. Sweetheart, I had no idea. I feel sick. Your mom told us he was already on oxygen when the paperwork happened. He wasn't, I said. You saw him at Easter that year. He was fine. She went quiet. I'm sorry. You shouldn't have had to carry all this. I did it for him, not for them. That night, 2 cousins messaged me to say they'd backed out of a group chat after mom started calling me a corporate snake. Another aunt sent me a text that just said, "Wish I'd asked questions sooner." Quick break, before we move on, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Not everyone flipped. Some doubled down. My cousin Mike replied to the email with, "This just proves how manipulative you are. If you need a PowerPoint to prove you're not a thief, that says everything." Cool, let him rot. Aunt Denise blocked my number. One of Kyle's college friends posted some vague meme about paper pushers killing family legacies and tagged my cousin in it. Real subtle, but the silence shifted. I wasn't the villain in whispers anymore. I was a wall. People could lean on it or crash into it, but it wasn't moving. And honestly, that gave me more peace than I expected. I didn't need them all to love me. Didn't need a group hug. I just needed the truth to exist where everyone could see it. No spin, no edits, just cold, dated facts. Let them sit with that. Let her sit with that. Because once the truth's out, it never goes back in the box. The day after I sent the family packet, I opened my email, added one more recipient, and hit send. Subject line, fraudulent filing tied to current employee. Kyle Thomas attachments, same documents, same timestamps, same evidence. Recipient, hr@langleyresidentialgroup.com. I didn't add a note. The documents spoke for themselves. Kyle had landed a job there a few months back, bragged about it on Facebook, said he was finally stepping into the legacy, posted a selfie in front of their brick building with a latte in one hand and a smug little smirk. 48 hours after I sent the email, I checked the company site. He was gone. No headshot, no title. No Meet Kyle Thomas, Associate Broker section. Scrubbed clean. An hour later, Maddox texted me. He's officially under review with the state licensing board. They called me for verification. We'll know more soon. I didn't smile. Not yet, but I felt something shift. By that evening, the missed calls started. 1, 3, 7. By midnight, it was 11. He didn't leave voicemails, just called again and again, like maybe I'd slip up and answer by accident. I didn't. I let the screen light up, then fade, over and over. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because there was nothing left to say. He knew what he did, and now it was catching up. Quick check-in. Before we go further, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. That Friday, he finally cracked online. Posted some bitter, self-pitying story on his Instagram. Funny how fake people will burn down their own family just to feel powerful. Hope the guilt keeps you warm, no name, no tags. But we all knew who it was about. Comments rolled in fast, most from clueless friends who didn't know a single thing beyond Kyle's version of the story. Damn, bro, stay strong. She'll get hers. You're the real one, man. I didn't reply, didn't even click the heart. Let it sit there. Let him scream into the void while I kept building a future. Maddox called that weekend with an update. They've opened a formal investigation, he said. Best case, he gets a license suspension. Worst case, he loses it permanently and gets flagged for fraud on all state filings. Either way, I said, he's done. He didn't argue, because we both knew Kyle only ever had one thing going for him, his image. That polished, charming, always networking persona he wore like a suit. He needed people to believe he was smart, capable, respectable. Now, his name was being reviewed by the very system he tried to scam. That wasn't a bad week. That was a death sentence for his career. I didn't feel giddy. I didn't dance around the house or pop a bottle. I sat on the couch, hands folded, and let it wash over me. The truth had done its job. No screaming match, no courtroom explosion, just receipts and silence, the kind that says, you lost. The letter came on a Tuesday. White envelope, courthouse seal, formal, clipped language like always. State of Missouri versus Kyle Thomas, case summary charge, attempted real estate fraud. Additional, use of falsified notary documentation, intent to deceive, and attempted unlawful transfer of commercial property. I sat at the shop counter when I opened it, same stool Grandpa used to sit on when he tallied the pawn slips. The sunlight hit the glass just right, lit up the dust in the air. Everything looked exactly how it used to. Except now, the silence felt earned. He wasn't going to jail. The report laid it all out. First-time offender, nonviolent, no prior record. Outcome, fines, court fees, 18 months probation, no license renewal. But still, it stuck. His name, publicly tied to fraud. No more real estate deals, no more side hustles, no more polished LinkedIn posts about legacy. He'd finally run out of other people's names to hide behind. I didn't text him, didn't post about it, didn't mention it to a soul. I just folded the letter in half and filed it in a cabinet marked resolved. And for the first time in months, my chest didn't feel tight. 4 weeks later, another envelope came. This one from my mom's lawyer. It was short, barely a page. Effective immediately, our client is dropping all claims. No further legal action will be pursued. Then the part that hit weird. She requests no future contact from Angel Thomas, verbal or written. That part made me pause. Not because I was sad, but because it was so formal. Like she had to have the last word, even while walking away. Quick note, before we finish, tell me where you're watching from today. I stared at that one line for a long time. She didn't ask to talk. Didn't say sorry, just legally declared that she didn't want to hear from me again. Fine. I folded that letter too, filed it under the same tab. Resolved. Then I locked up for the day and took a slow walk through the old building. Floorboards creaked like they always had. The back office still smelled like old coffee grounds and leather-bound ledgers. Grandpa's chair was still there, beat to hell, duct tape on the arms, sunken just enough to remember him leaning back with his reading glasses sliding down his nose. I ran my hand along the counter, tapped the register. Open, shut. The same one I used to play with when I was 7. Back when Kyle and I were still just kids. Before he learned how to lie with a smile. Before Mom turned disappointment into manipulation. This place, this life, had almost been taken from me. And they would have burned it to the ground without blinking. I stood in the doorway to the office and let the stillness settle. No drama, no raised voices, just quiet. I wasn't angry anymore. I was solid. I looked out the front window, just as the sun started dropping behind the buildings across the street. The glass caught a flash of gold, just like it used to on summer evenings when Grandpa would lock up and say, "Done right. This place will take care of you long after I'm gone." I whispered it back, real soft. I did it right. That was my promise to him. I stood in that office doorway for a long time, watching the light fade across the front windows, until the hum of the streetlights kicked on. It had been a year, 12 months of paperwork, fake filings, legal threats, and whispered lies. A year of everyone thinking I'd roll over, like always. That I'd stay quiet, clean up after the chaos, and never raise my voice. But I didn't just protect what was mine. I rewrote the whole story. They thought I was weak because I didn't yell, because I didn't throw chairs or post callouts on Facebook. But silence doesn't mean surrender. It means planning. It means patience. And when I finally moved, I moved with facts. They didn't see it coming. My mom went quiet. No apology, no explanation, just silence. Like I'd been erased from her version of the family tree. That was fine by me. Her silence was the loudest proof I'd won. Kyle? He lost everything he thought made him special. No license, no job, no network, no image to hide behind. He could blame fake people all he wanted, but the only person who ruined him was him. And me? I didn't just keep the business. I became the business. I made the place stronger. I fixed the wiring, updated the security system, redid the books. I turned Grandpa's trust into something that would last long, after the last cousin forgot my name. More than anything, I stopped being the one they could use. They don't get to rewrite me anymore. Quick pause. If you've made it this far, tell me where you're watching from. The freedom didn't come with fireworks. It came with peace. I woke up one morning, brewed coffee, opened the shop, and didn't flinch at the sound of my phone. I didn't check the locks twice. I didn't reread letters, waiting for the fine print to bite. I just lived. And that right there, that was the win. They thought the real power came from owning the name, the building, the story. But they never understood the truth. Power isn't what you take, it's what you never give back.